Welcome to today's explainer. Okay, so I want you to picture this. You're out for a nice walk, and suddenly your dog just starts slurping from a puddle. And not just any puddle, a stagnant, murky puddle that has been baking in a parking lot for 3 days. You watch it happen. You tried to pull the leash, but you were just way too slow. And now your dog is looking up at you with this completely serene expression, having absolutely no idea why you're freaking out. Because from your dog's perspective, that was a perfectly reasonable decision. Honestly, it might be the highlight of their day. I'm really excited to guide you through this explainer today because we are going to unpack the fascinating, borderline, magical biological superpower that allows our dogs to do this without a second thought.
So it all comes down to this one crucial question. Why is your dog biologically fine? Look, here's the harsh reality. If you or I got down on our hands and knees and drank from that 3-day-old parking lot puddle, we would not be fine. Not even a little bit. It would be a disaster. But your dog? They are mechanistically, fundamentally, totally fine. And that's because their relationship with contaminated water is built on a completely different set of biological defenses. Defenses that have been refined over thousands and thousands of years in wild environments where clean, filtered water just wasn't a luxury anyone had.
Section 1. Anatomy of a defense. Inside the biological kill zone.
All right, we are going right inside this biological kill zone to figure out where this superpower actually lives. And the most immediately important defense? It lives right in the stomach. For context, human stomach acid typically sits at a pH between 1.5 and 3.5, which, is already quite acidic. It's a really effective barrier against a whole host of pathogens. But dog stomach acid, it operates on a completely different level, making it significantly more hostile to the exact microorganisms that make outdoor water dangerous.
We're talking about a pH of 1. Now, lower on the pH scale means more acidic, and a dog's stomach acid sits incredibly close to a 1. You have to remember, the primary way dirty water makes us sick isn't the actual water itself, it's the tiny microorganisms swimming around in it, things like E. coli, salmonella, or different parasites. Because a dog's stomach is basically a vat of intense acid, it acts as a highly effective kill zone. Way more of these organisms are just totally destroyed here before they ever even get the chance to reach the intestines.
But the canine digestive tract doesn't just rely on the stomach. It uses a really brilliant layered approach. Step 1 actually starts the second the water hits their mouth, using something called salivary lysozyme. That's an enzyme that literally damages the cell walls of certain bacteria right at the point of entry. Then step 2 is that highly acidic kill zone in the stomach we just talked about. And finally, step 3 relies on mucosal immunity and the microbiome in the intestines. And to top the whole thing off, dogs pass food and water through their digestive systems significantly faster than humans do. This is huge because a faster transit time dramatically shrinks the window of opportunity that pathogens have to attach to the gut lining and actually establish an infection.
I absolutely love this quote because it shatters a myth I'm sure we've all heard. You know the one, that a dog's mouth is somehow magically cleaner than a human's mouth? Yeah, that is completely false. A dog's mouth is packed with massive numbers of bacteria. The catch here is host specificity. They are canine bacteria, meaning they don't typically establish themselves in human mouths and vice versa. So the dog mouth is not clean, it is just differently contaminated. While they do have a bit more of that lysozyme enzyme to help with a first-pass defense, they absolutely aren't walking around with magically sterile mouths.
Section 2. The Scavenger's Evolution, from Wolves to Waste Foragers.
So how did they get this way? Well, their evolutionary history makes perfect sense of this crazy water tolerance. First off, dogs descended from wolves, and wolves are scavengers. Think about it. A wolf that refused to drink from a stagnant, murky pool near a rotting carcass was a wolf that just died of dehydration. The ones that could process that contamination, they survived. Next, as wolves domesticated into proto-dogs, they started hanging around human settlements. They were foraging through our ancient waste piles, eating food and drinking water of highly variable quality. The individuals that got sick from our garbage died out. Finally, hundreds of thousands of years of this intense selection pressure in extremely contamination-rich environments brings us to the modern domestic dog. They don't drink from a dirty puddle despite their biology, they do it literally because of it.
Which brings us to a really fascinating biological concept, colonization resistance. A dog's gastrointestinal microbiome is a bustling, crowded community of trillions of microorganisms. And because dogs are constantly exploring the outdoors, they naturally develop incredibly diverse gut microbiomes. This diversity means that all the available ecological space in their gut is already taken. So, when some harmful bacteria from a puddle enters the chat, it simply cannot establish itself. It's like trying to find a seat in a fully packed football stadium. There's just literally no room for the invaders to sit down and cause trouble.
And honestly, this completely reframes how you should look at your dog's behavior. The dirty puddle is actually a microbiome maintenance activity. Mind-blowing, right? The outdoor dog slurping from a puddle isn't just surviving. It is continuously updating its gut microbiome and calibrating its mucosal immune system. The immune system is essentially a learning machine. By encountering the microbiome load in that outdoor water, the dog is maintaining a specific active memory response to those exact pathogens. The dog's gut community is actually stronger for the exposure.
Plus, they aren't just drinking blindly out there. They employ a very active behavioral defense strategy. When a dog investigates a puddle, they aren't just being reckless. They sniff the water, conducting a highly complex olfactory assessment. Certain microbial communities produce very distinct smells, and experienced dogs actually learn to associate those smells with bad water. They check to see if other animals are around. They assess the visual appearance of the source. It is a highly refined strategy balancing the information right in front of them with their evolutionary baseline that, hey, outdoor water is generally worth consuming. Section 3. Humans versus dogs, the evolutionary anomaly.
Now, comparing our dogs to ourselves reveals something pretty incredible. Thanks to municipal water treatment, modern humans have essentially scrubbed microbial contamination from our daily lives. And don't get me wrong, that is a massive triumph for public health. No more cholera, no more typhoid, but the biological cost is a severely narrowed immune memory. We have a slow, non-specific response to outdoor organisms. Modern dogs, however, maintain continuous pathogen exposure from all that variable outdoor water, so their immune system retains a broad, rapid, and specifically calibrated memory for those environmental threats.
And this brings us to a pretty powerful realization. The dog drinking from a puddle, that is the evolutionary baseline. You are the anomaly. Before we built massive clean water infrastructure, ancient humans drank from the exact same variable outdoor sources as dogs did. Our ancient ancestors maintained an immune architecture that was continuously calibrated by those dirty exposures. The biological potential to handle this is still hidden somewhere in your genome. But today, the modern human drinking sterile, chemically treated water out of a tap every single day is the true evolutionary oddity. The dog is just keeping the ancient ways active.
Section 4. Limits of invulnerability, where canine defenses fail.
Okay, time for a quick reality check, because as robust as they are, canine defenses absolutely do fail. And if you're a pet owner, it's vital to know where these limits are. First, typical microbes like E. coli and Salmonella handled incredibly well by the acid stomach and that crowded microbiome. However, parasites like Giardia or specific strains of bacteria like leptospirosis pose a mixed to highly dangerous threat. Giardia can actually survive stomach acid, and leptospirosis can be severe or even fatal, which, by the way, is exactly why we have vaccines for it. Finally, we have chemicals and toxins, things like heavy metals or cyanobacteria, which you probably know as blue-green algae. A dog has zero evolutionary defense against chemical threats. A dog that happily drinks an E. coli-laden puddle all summer long can literally be killed in a matter of hours by a single encounter with a blue-green algae bloom. Their biology has strict, hard limits when chemistry is the primary threat.
Furthermore, this whole iron stomach rule strictly applies to a very specific demographic: healthy, young adult dogs. There are definitely vulnerable demographics here. Young puppies, for instance, have immune systems that are still developing, so they completely lack that calibrated pathogen memory. Senior dogs are also at a much higher risk, as their immune function naturally declines with age. And specific breeds matter too. Working dogs might have totally different physiological stress responses and microbiome compositions compared to your typical companion breeds. So just remember, not all dogs are operating with the exact same suit of armor.
Which brings us right back to where we started, leaving us with a final thought. If you and your dog both drank from that 3-day-old parking lot puddle, why would the one holding the leash be the only one getting sick? Now, just to be absolutely crystal clear, neither of you should drink from that puddle, please. But the reason your dog walks away fine isn't magic. It's the intensely acidic stomach, the layered mucosal immunity, the colonization resistance in the gut, and an immune system heavily calibrated by thousands of years of evolutionary history. Your dog isn't being wild or reckless. They are simply surviving in their natural habitat, keeping an ancient biological calibration completely active. A calibration that we humans left behind a very, very long time ago.